You know, I was thinking there's something really exciting and magical about being so late in the program at the end of a long day. Our job as the tail enders are to bring this sucker home to you guys. And I think that that means maybe saving a little of the best for last. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is one of the most important parts of the theater-going experience, which is the audience. Not a lot of people really think about or talk to their audiences on a regular basis. I'm extremely lucky. I get paid to do this every day of my life, and I love what I do. I want to talk a little bit about audience demographics and what a difference 20 years makes, both before and after, and the lessons that we can learn as a collective. When we look very quickly at the 2010-2011 profile, we've got some challenges that are facing us moving forward for 20 years. We've got the average age of 44, and it's trending older. We're not inspiring a new generation to come in, plunk down their money, and say they want to see a Broadway show. What's really, really critical is that we keep replenishing that audience. In 20 years, you have to remember, that person's going to be 64. And what they're faced with is that they are going to be coming to a theater that's not necessarily built for them. And they've got issues themselves that they're going to be facing. We have females that are 65% of the audience. I want to find out from you guys, 65% of the audience, that's great. But are we exclusive or are we an inclusive company? Are we going to welcome many more men? A show that I worked on that shall remain nameless, but everybody's read about, some of the work we've done. For the first time, we've actually seen men on par 50-50 male-female. It's a big budget show with lots of flying, and I'm sure you guys know what we're talking about. Which was so encouraging to me. There's things for men and there's things for women on Broadway. The only problem with a man is that going in the next day, it's hard to say, hey, Bill, I saw a Broadway show last night. Boy, was it great. They're not as likely to talk about because they don't want to be thought of as that guy that sees something that's weak. Boy, they'll talk about that game they saw. Wasn't that a great game? How can we make it interesting for them? How can we let them start spreading the news for us? Men are an important part of our audience that we can't ignore. Audience attendance was 12.5 million, which is amazing. That's an amazing number. We have to keep growing that number, though. We have to keep building on that number every single year. We have to take that 12.5 million, and in the next 20 years, we've got to get that and keep growing that so that we're at a point where those houses, as Damien was saying, they're 80% sold right now. We've got to get that up to 90% sold. Broadway as a business has to be treated as a business, and it must be looked at as a business in order to keep succeeding. Audiences are 83% Caucasian currently, and that's the slowest growth rate of all ethnicities over the next 20 years. Again, I want to just ask, are we going to be exclusive or are we going to be inclusive? Are we going to be able to take and encourage new audiences and different audiences to come in and see our shows? And how can we do that? What can we do? It's very simple. It's what we're offering up, and it's how we're positioning it. Tourists currently purchase over 60% of tickets sold, and thank God for tourists. There's something wonderful about coming to New York City, and it doesn't look like that tourism is going to stop anytime soon. New York City had a record 50+ million visitors in 2011, which is brilliant. And most of them, when they come here, I would love them to say, the one thing I got to do when I hit New York is see the Empire State Building and see a show. And see a show is a key phrase that we've got to get into the lexicon of every single person that's coming into the city. See a show. But we have to do that as a collective. We have to start thinking as more of a collective, as Broadway as an experience and not just as our individual shows. A lot of people think that they're the only show running on Broadway, which it's hard not to because your day is consumed with day in, day out thinking about that show and how can I get people to my show instead of thinking about how to get people to Broadway in general. I want to show you something that's really kind of a little sobering. And I don't mean to be a downer, but I want us to just think about this thing. Can Broadway continue to be a viable entertainment option in 20 years? I'm going to be an optimist and I'm going to say yes, it can, and it should, and it will. But we have to address certain issues. First, let's look at, we have an aging audience whose income becomes more limited as time goes on. Yet, everything we've seen is the price points will continue to outpace that. We're going to continue to charge more, yet our primary audience right now, their dollars are shrinking. So how are we going to combat that? Let's look at that there's more distraction for entertainment dollars every single day of our lives. We're having something new that's introduced, that's shinier, that's better, that's prettier, that's someone who wants to embrace everything that's new and wonderful. They're putting their money right there. I want them to put their money where they should. It's like Jordan Roth was saying earlier. There's nothing like that live experience. That live experience can't be duplicated anywhere else. We have to remind people that there's nothing like that. An instant gratification generation is moving into the ranks. Really difficult because they can get anything like that. They can go online, they can get anything and satisfy anything, except tickets to a Broadway show is very, very difficult to get online. We've all known it, we all discussed it, we all know that there's issues around there. Are they going to go down to the box office and stand in line? No. Are they going to be patient to wait to see the Book of Mormon for 6 months, 8 months, however long it's going to take, or are they going to forget about it if they can't get those tickets quickly? Tourism growth, and I put a lot of question marks after that. That tourism growth, that's really, really amazing, but we have to look beyond just the tourists. We have to look at ourselves. It's like Vinny was saying, we have to look in our own backyard and grow audiences here, which unfortunately, with that 60-40 split, we're not doing the best job we could possibly be doing with that right now. Let's take a look at one thing, the great Las Vegas experiment, late 80s, early 90s. Vegas was in a crisis. Vegas had a lot of issues that it was facing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those. It had a reputation. People called it Las Vegas, or by its uglier nickname, Lost Wages. Terrible, terrible thing to be burdened with something like that. That meant you went to Vegas, you didn't have a good time, you lost money when you went to Vegas. The typical gambler, aging without a replacement generation. Everything, the iconic Las Vegas locations were dated, dusty. Nobody wanted to stay in those hotels. Las Vegas had lost its fun factor. There was nothing fun anymore or interesting about going to Vegas. The public image, it was unsafe. It was crime infested. There was prostitution. There was anything and everything that was talked about in the media when you talked about Las Vegas that was negative. Value for dollar was tarnished. It felt cheap and expensive at the same time. You could buy a 50-cent steak in Las Vegas. That is a true story back then. Yet, at the same time, you could come away with your pockets empty. And people were not having a good time with that. And it became the punchline for way too many jokes on television, and it became a joke in general. And you look like at a moneymaker, like Las Vegas was supposed to have been, you look at that and you think, gosh, that's not good. That's not what we need. So what Vegas did was they searched for a new generation of tourists and residents, really key, tourists and residents. In 1990, the first exclusive family-friendly resort, Excalibur, opened using theme park ideals. Basically, what they did was they knew that in order to make Vegas fun to a new generation, they had to introduce that experience to a whole new generation. And they tried luring families in. Might not have been the most successful campaign, but what it did do, all those kids that came with their families, suddenly they started to get an idea of what Vegas meant and that Vegas was fun. A highly publicized rebirth, out with the old. We all saw where they were, and they were very smart about doing it. We saw buildings being exploded. We saw iconic monuments being torn down. Because what they needed to do is they needed to say to the public that we're dusting ourselves off. We're becoming a new place. The state-of-the-art hotel building renaissance. There wasn't a day that went by that we didn't hear about these 3,000-room hotels that were being put up with million-dollar art collections, with white tigers that you could go see. Suddenly Vegas became a little more interesting, and people were writing about it. It became a vacation destination all over again. One of the smartest things they could have done. The 1995, the Hard Rock Hotel opens, and Vegas suddenly started to become hip to a younger generation and a younger demo. It became one of the top places to go to celebrate your 21st birthday, was Las Vegas, which is awesome. Vegas begins a residential boom, affordable and friendly place to live. Everybody remembers when Vegas was the place to live. And they were smart about that. They had more diverse entertainment option, bigger star-driven shows exclusive to Vegas, more attractions, the Star Trek experience. You guys would be amazed. Patricia was talking about being a numbers nerd earlier. I'm a big numbers nerd too. But us nerds, we are a huge number and standing arm in arm with each other. And you guys have a collective called theater nerds. You know, you've got to energize and embrace them and bring them into the theater. Nightclubs started to thrive in the same area. Vegas was never known as a place to go and hang out in clubs. Suddenly it became bigger, better, badder. Real World Las Vegas is the second highest rated season in history, which led to to use one of Patricia's words, a renaissance for a younger generation to go. Vegas became that destination to that younger generation, which was one of the smartest things they could have ever done. They energized a whole new demographic to come and enjoy. And there is nothing, guys, I have to tell you, there's nothing like that live theater experience. The good, the bad, the ugly truth, the learnings from Las Vegas are very, very simple. When was the last time that kids really thought that going to a Broadway show was hip? And that's something that you really need, you know, that it's really a cool thing to do. Outside of that collective, Vinny was talking about the fact that there is a problem with funding for the arts in schools. That's generally kids' first exposure to live theater. It's not in Broadway. So I couldn't agree more with what he's proposing to you. You have got to grow a new generation. Disney was so smart with what they did. They brought a whole new generation of theater goers and brought them into the theater experience, you know. And a lot of people don't say it, but, you know, we do owe a big debt to Disney for what they did. They were very smart and they were way ahead of their time. When we think about the fact that in general, and I'm out of time, so I'm just going to wrap this up very quickly. In general, when we look at Las Vegas and the mistakes that they made by being complacent and not changing with the times, and what it cost them, and what it cost them was literally billions of dollars, guys. As a collective here, we have to make a commitment and elect people to help lead us, lead the charge. These young Turks that are going to inspire and bring change to Broadway and help us bring a new audience in. Those are the people that we want to look for. And I hate to say it because there is a lot of catfighting. I know you guys are going to disagree with me. There's a lot of bitchiness and catfighting between shows on Broadway. And I know you guys think that's not true. But it is true. And what we have to do is put all that pettiness aside and think about the good of Broadway. Thank you so very much.
Great. Excellent.